Morning, people. Today we're going to talk about a drill pattern and how to break rock or how to break concrete effectively. Sometimes where people go wrong is we say drill an 1.5 inch hole, they drill a 3/4 inch hole, and then they get surprised why it doesn't work. So the simple physics behind grout is it creates pressure. Pressure kind of varies. We know exactly what the grout does, but we don't know exactly how strong your concrete is. Concrete comes in different MPAs. Some is reinforced, some is not. Thicker concrete, thinner concrete, old concrete, new concrete. It really varies, as does rock. The geology of rock is very dense and hard in some cases, and very seamy and loose and soft in other cases. There's a scale. You can actually check that if you wanted to go that in depth. But really, my point of it all is that we know what the grout will do, and it's just simply a matter of trying to match up the pressure that the grout causes to break apart your rock or concrete. So what we do with the grout is we put it into a pattern. The pattern is what causes it to break. So we're basically doing a split and break versus, like a mechanical impact, which would be like a jackhammer or a hammer on an excavator or bobcat. The drill and split is a lot easier. Rock breaks much easier that way because you're causing the force internally instead of externally. But to get back to the point of the pattern, to start with, you need to have some relief. Relief is just simply like an open face or open air on one side at least, where you can have somewhere for the rock to move to. Because if it's got a relief, it can go that direction, and it'll have a place to crack and go into. So the standard pattern across the board on the industry of all the expanding grouts is an 1.5 inch diameter hole and a grid pattern of 1 foot by 1 foot. So that's the same pattern that we have here for a quick crack, is the 1x1 pattern, 1.5 inch diameter. Then we move up here into our next pro, which is a stronger grout. So you can do that same 1.5 inch hole, but all of a sudden space your holes out 16 inches apart. And then over here we have our black gold, which is a whole other story. You can actually drill 3 or 4 inch diameter holes and space your holes out 5 or 7 feet apart. So that's a big deal actually when you're getting into big jobs. The pattern really gets into, I want to explain about how it's really flexible. It's not really the cut and dry 1 foot by 1 foot. So simply, if you want to have a boulder split into 2 pieces, you don't need to drill a whole pattern. All you need to really do is drill a line of holes across the boulder 1 foot apart, 80% of the depth of the rock, and pour that, and it'll split it into 2 pieces. If you want to take that same rock and split it into 4 pieces, you simply drill a plus sign, and then you do the same. Line drill 2 holes across, 1 foot apart, pour them, and it's going to split it into 4 pieces, and so on. Then what you can also do, where the pattern is flexible, is you can decrease the size of the drill hole, because some people have a limitation to what their drills can take as far as bits. So you can drill, 1.25 inches, 1 inch hole, and you just decrease your spacing from 1 foot down to say 6 inches for a 1 inch hole. And opposite of that is you can drill bigger diameter holes, 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches, even 2 inch, and then space your holes out farther apart. Or you can use that same method if you want to just have the rock break up quicker. Then you can just drill a bigger diameter hole. Even just going up that one little step to 1.5 inches makes a big difference. It helps it break faster. So bigger the hole, the farther apart you can space your holes, and the pattern actually really makes a big difference. So that's the thing you want to think about. Is it a boulder that you're breaking where you just want to drill a line of holes across it? Or is it solid bedrock, or what we call in situ rock, where you have to break it up out of the ground? If it's bedrock, then your whole pattern is even more important, and also is the fact of having relief. Relief is a free space or open space for it to break into. If you don't have any relief, it doesn't have anywhere to go, and it just won't work. If you don't have relief, that's okay. We can create relief. We do that by drilling on a 45, and we also have for trenching what we call a V pattern. So you drill on a 45 and they would meet each other at the bottom, which in that case what it does is it lifts the rock up to the surface. Whereas if you're doing like a slab, you can drill all of your holes on a 45 and then it'll lift all the rock up to the surface. If that's the case, you can also do some different things. You know, if you're in the job, say you're going to be in a stone quarry, a dimensional stone quarry, we have ways to break out the blocks. You can drill your holes a foot apart and 4 feet back from the face. The face is the face of the rock, so if you're going to drill 4 feet back, a foot apart, it's going to break that block out. And what we have is, we call it our spacing and burden. So the burden is what we call the distance between the face of the rock and the first row of holes, and also from row to row. So the burden is from row to row, and your spacing is the space from each hole, from one hole to the next hole to the next hole. That's the spacing. So a good way to do it is, if you're going to break out a large area of rock, is you can do a spacing and burden, and your burden is usually 1.25 times the spacing. So in other words, if you're doing a 1 foot spacing, you could do a 1.5 foot burden. So that saves you also drilling, and it also saves you on grout. Then once you get up into the black gold and drilling 3-inch holes, then you can space your holes out 5 feet apart. And also 4-inch holes, then you can go 7 feet apart. So you're getting into a pretty big pattern. The big advantage of black gold is it saves you so much money in grout, because it takes really like a quarter or a third of the grout that the smaller regular size grout will do. Another pattern that we have is, if say you want to do a utility pole in the ground, it's all solid rock. What we have is a pattern for that, where we do relief holes around the perimeter, and then relief holes in the middle. So the relief holes in the perimeter would be, say, 1.5 inches, the same as the rest of your holes. But the reamer holes, we call them, in the middle would be bigger holes. So those you would drill 3-inch. And you just do a pattern of holes in between that, and then you don't fill the relief holes, and then that gives the rock somewhere to crack and crumble into. So we have patterns for everything. We have patterns for doing utility poles, boulders, basements. If you have rock in your basement, we can help you with a pattern for whatever it is that you come across. And that's it for drilling. Thanks for watching.